When you study the history of cinema and its evolution, you'll find that certain patterns of innovation emerge. For the most part, innovation happens gradually as the craft of movie making grows. But every few decades arrives a period where there's a massive explosion of innovative and landmark films that forever change how films in the future will be made. The later half of the 1990s into the early 2000s is one of those exact periods. Movies like Saving Private Ryan and Braveheart would forever change how historical war films were approached, while the massive success of Titanic would forever alter the way films are marketed and promoted. Other movies pushed the world of special effects into new, never-before-seen territory with computer-generated effects. Mission Impossible, The Matrix, Jurassic Park. The latter, Jurassic Park, set an incredible groundwork combining computer and practical creature effects that, to this day, still has some of the most lifelike dinosaurs ever seen on screen. The effects essentially pioneered by Jurassic Park would eventually be put to work in a fantasy film named Dragonheart in 1996. Set in a pre-Norman invasion England during a time of shared lands between the native Welsh Britons and the foreign Saxons, a Briton knight named Sir Bowen follows the old code of the Knights of Arthur. When he feels betrayed by a dragon, he swears an oath to hunt down every last dragon dwelling in the Isles. After many years, he succeeds, save for one. However, he and the dragon strike a mutual deal that will prove to be more beneficial in the long run, conning villagers out of their hard-earned gold by pretending to save them from a dragon. What follows is a movie that explores political turmoil, the human condition, the drive for vengeance, and what it means to be a friend. If that plot sounds kind of all over the place and a bit confusing, well, it is, I won't lie. The biggest criticism that can be levied against Dragonheart is that it's a very confusing movie to really summarize. It's one of those films that, if you're the target audience, it makes sense in the here and now when you're having fun and you're invested, but once you reflect back on it, you realize that it's like a chicken running around without a head. But don't write off Dragonheart just yet. It has many, and I repeat many, redeeming qualities. The performances in the film are excellent. Dennis Quaid as Bowen is always entertaining, and David Thewlis makes for a perfectly wretched villain. However, the star of the show is obviously the voice of Sean Connery as the Dragon Draco, Bowen's partner in crime. The relationship between enemies turned friends Bowen and Draco feels very organic, natural, and charming. The same can be said with the friends turned enemies relationship between Bowen and his King Einan. Another element that makes Dragonheart worth a watch is the effects of the dragon, which, while not as impressive as Jurassic Park's dinosaurs, still has some technical finesse behind it and holds up for the most part. It still remains a prime example of how well both practical and computer-generated effects can work when combined together. The other thing that Dragonheart has going for it is it's a quality film. It's well made with excellent cinematography and sound design. However, it also exists in a strange time where it can feel dated, especially when you compare it to its contemporaries. This is especially noticeable when it comes to some of the large-scale battles in the film, which feel very static and too organized compared to the controlled and stylish chaos that most medieval war films have now thanks to films like Braveheart. Dragonheart is sort of an enigma. It is, at the end of the day, a good film, but it feels like it was made in the wrong decade. But because of the technology needed to make it, it could only exist in the decade it was made. Its story is all over the place, but endearing enough to enjoy in the moment, and you'll be rooting for our dynamic duo and their band of merry men and women to pull through until the end. There's enough charm to pull your heartstrings when it wants to, especially if you allow yourself to get invested. From a historical interest, it's also pretty cool to see medieval stories set in a pre-Norman England, which you don't usually get to see. Like many people, I'm often opposed to remakes, which tend to be shameless cash grabs. But if there was any movie I'd point to and say, now that needs a remake, it had to be Dragonheart all the way. Fix up the problems with its story and pacing and use it as a tool to push forward and pioneer the next generation of special effects, and it could potentially be a surefire success, so long as they don't lose the qualities that make the original film memorable in the process. But as for the original film itself, if you can get invested in the movie and not think too much about it while indulging yourself, you'll enjoy if you happen to be a fantasy buff like me.